Let us invoke Sri Aurobindo and the Mother before we begin this sacred session on music and sound. I will have to compress some 60 years into half an hour. To begin, well, I see the timings are very flexible here. I believe it began many births ago, but in 1961, the mother sent a telegram to Dr. Judith Tyberg of the East-West Cultural Center in Los Angeles. And she said about me, "Tell him he may come and stay as long as he likes." I was 22. And I came to the ashram and met the mother for the first time. I had just turned 23. In a long session in which she did so many things in my inner being, she also spoke to me about music. And at one point she became very silent, looked at me and said in her powerful voice, "You must bring down a new music." Well, I was on a scholarship in the US to prepare for the Metropolitan Opera. As it seems, from quite a young age, I had a very deep, large bass voice. So I said to Mother, "Mother, I don't know anything about combining words and music." And she looked at me and she said, No, you must go far above words and bring down the pure music." And that has been my life these past 50-something years. To bring down a music that would have the power of effectuation, the power to transform and to heal, which those of you who have attended the Om choirs have experienced. In the choirs, people have vision after vision after vision, healing experience after healing experience. But the main work is to bring down this new music. Mother said, there is a music waiting just above the head for those who are receptive, and it wants to come down. She also told us to sit in a circle. That was a very important point she made. And then she said, have no preconceived idea as to what will happen, what will come down. And so our practices in the Om choir, and how many of you have attended the Om choirs? Oh, my goodness, look at that, wonderful. Our practice is to begin to train the body consciousness through physical exercises, how to receive and hold this new music. A music that cannot be judged by the mind. And certainly, one has to leave out of the door the ego and all of the mind's penchants for its dual understanding of life, good and bad, and high and low, and truth and falsehood. In that pure atmosphere, where we have often 100 to 150 and more people every Tuesday night, we have experienced the oneness in Oroville in a way that no other gathering could experience, because it's through the power of sound. Sri Aurobindo writes, Om is the syllable, the imperishable. One should follow after it as the upward song, in parentheses, movement. For with Om, one sings, parentheses, goes upwards. He writes in volume 13, the basic syllable Om, which is the foundation of all the perfect creative sounds of the revealed word. Om is the one universal formulation of the energy of sound and speech, that which contains and sums up, synthesizes and releases all the spiritual power and all the potentiality of Vak, speech, the goddess speech, and Shabda, sound, vibration, word. There is much more from Sri Aurobindo on Om, and I encourage you all to read it. If you go to our website, motherandSriAurobindo.in, all the works of Mother and Sri Aurobindo are cross-referenced. So you can just type in Om, click on Sri Aurobindo and Mother, and you'll get everything they've said on Om. Mother, of course, has said very clearly to us, Om is the voice of the Lord. How did I arrive at Om? In the early days of Oroville, I would say from 69 perhaps to 79, when there were very few of us in 69. Matrimandia hadn't begun. We would gather in small groups in the old Bharat Nivas, 4 or 5 of us, Mary Helen, Shraddhavan, Lisa Ubili, and a few others. And we would sing, whatever came. But it was around 2003 that I received my second Adesh, and that was the music would descend through a collective body, not individually. And that collective body, that sacred body, now is functioning in Oroville and allowing us to realize the oneness and the harmony that already exists in us, but is often hidden from our view because of the ego and because there is not still enough love. Now, what have I been doing these past 55 years? Mother gave me the indication that this music was already coming down in bits and pieces here and there through composers regardless of religious preferences in many, many nations. So I began to listen within, to hear the new music. When I was in my late teens, I once heard, for a very brief time, the music of the spheres. And I have followed that all my life, because I had never experienced such beauty and such love pouring down onto the earth. And so, even today, I listen to hundreds and hundreds of musical compositions, basically choral works, because Mother said, she wrote actually, that of all the instruments, the violin was the purest, but of all the sounds, it was the human voice that was the purest of all. And so, a choir of united voices has been shown to me to be the most efficacious way of bringing down the new music. It does not need to be a large group, for numbers don't matter. Actually, 3 or 4 people together are sufficient. You know, as Christ once said, something to the effect that when 2 or more are gathered in my name, I am there. And I can tell you that the Mother and Sri Aurobindo, as they are with us now, they are with us in the Om choir. They are with us in each of our souls. And we only have to begin to open more and more to realize that truth of our being. Now, there are 2 recent composers, and one may like or dislike their music. One, Karl-Heinz Stockhausen, and the other, Giacinto Celsi, who both say that their inspiration has come from Sri Aurobindo and La Mer. In an article in Tempo, October 1995, Celsi, like Karlheinz Stockhausen, was profoundly influenced by Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, and caught the significance of Om. Celsi insisted that he was, quote, not a composer, but one who receives music from outside himself. There are so many composers now, and for those of you who may be interested, I'll go through some names of those who have brought something down of the new music. I'll miss a lot of them, but at least I can give you a beginning for listening. One is Ola Gjello, Gjielo. He's Norwegian, living in America. These are modern composers. These are composers who, some of them still alive. I believe that Georgy Sviridov passed away about 10 years ago, but his music you must hear, as well as Dmitriev from Russia, and Grigorieva from Russia, 3 of them. Now, from the Baltic areas, there's been an explosion of extraordinary music. Peteris Vasks, Eriks Essenvals, and many others. I keep finding new composers through choral music, although there's one Dutch composer, Joop Franzens, who is doing extraordinary work with instrumental music, truly bringing something down that was not here before. Rautavaara from Finland. He says that he has set several of Rilke's poems to music. He says, music is a language where we can probe those other realities without words. Besides immense pleasure, music gives to the listener information. The information is not anything you can transcribe in words. And then he goes on to say, as a young man, I went with a friend to a piano concert. The pianist played very well. When we left the hall, my friend, who was a pianist also, said, "Did you notice he did everything right, with very good command of technique and style, but he didn't really understand what he was playing. He just played without understanding anything." My friend said he couldn't put it in words, but he could readily sit at the piano and play what he meant. "It's this," he said, and he played it. This specific information that could not be expressed in words. That was the first time I came to this idea that there is another reality expressed in music. I can tell you it is such a joy to listen to these compositions and to these choirs, many of them young people, college students. Here's something of Celsi. Since the 1940s, Jacinto Celsi had been deeply involved with Eastern religions. He practiced yoga as well as other religious disciplines and studied the works of, for example, Blavatsky and Gurdjieff, but he was particularly influenced by the teachings of Sri Aurobindo and La Mer. He believed that various meditation techniques, such as intoning the Om, enabled him to enter into a different vibratory realm. For him, sound in its purest vibration was a potent force that has an extremely powerful influence on people. He was convinced that through meditation and improvisation, he could become a channel for higher forces which would enable the creation of works that were otherwise impossible through ordinary composition. I have made a list of composers and their compositions, and would be happy to send it to anyone who is interested. You can start with about 12 or 15 pieces, and then of course on YouTube, everything on the right side shows more and more. To enter into these realms of vibratory experience of oneness, of the descent of love through sound, is one of the things that have brought me closer to the source of all sound, as Sri Aurobindo has written. Here he says, the mantra of the divine consciousness brings its light of revelation. The mantra of the divine power, its will of effectuation. The mantra of the divine Ananda is equal fulfillment of the spiritual delight of existence. All word and thought are an outflowing of the great Om. Om, the word, the eternal, manifest in the forms of sensible objects, manifest in that conscious play of creative self-conception, of which forms and objects are the figures, manifest behind in the self-gathered, superconscient power of the infinite. Om is the sovereign source, seed, womb of thing and idea, form and name. It is itself integrally the supreme intangible, the original unity, the timeless mystery, self-existent above all manifestation in supernal being. I don't know that there is a greater way, as we are today, than to join in the Om, to realize the unity through sound, the oneness that we are already, but not often aware of. So I've used my half hour, and if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Well, yes.
Those composers which you were talking about, you felt they have already some, their music is from a different consciousness.
Just a moment.
Sorry, I came a little later, but the...
It doesn't work the second mic.
It doesn't work?
No, it's not on.
No?
Mm.
Oh, it doesn't matter. Well, those composers, he's not hearing.
No, you can speak
up.
loud.
Just speak up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's not hearing.
Speak loud.
It's okay.
Those composers which you were mentioning, you said they are all they are composing a music of they are already a different consciousness is inside the music. Did you say this? I came a little bit later. You were telling about some composers who are already embodying this a little higher consciousness. That's not hearing.
Well, none of them have it fully as yet. There are touches here and there, lights, we might say, lights of beauty and grace and love. And it comes perhaps once or twice in a piece of music, and you've got it.
Or did you also sorry.
The full manifestation will not come for some time. But the Om choir, however, is, I feel, the vehicle which will bring most of it down. And Om choirs are beginning now all over the world. In Berlin, in Belgium, in Australia, in the US, in Canada, in France. I get letters from people, we are 2 or 3 or 4, and singing the Om is so beautiful. And actually, if we think about it, from our highest consciousness, those vibrations go through walls, go through countries, as Mother says, with the cells of her body that were transformed, by a vast contagion, they enter into all those who are ready. And that is true of the music especially. The power of Om goes into every soul in the world who is open. No doors and no walls can prevent that. When I was young, I was inducted, I'll put it that way because I was very young, into the Russian Orthodox faith. And I rebelled rather early on, but I never forgot the music, which is a music of such transcendent beauty, even though often touched with sadness and grief. There are moments from some of these great composers that are truly revelatory. I urge you to listen more for the inner music. As I often say in the Om choirs that Sri Aurobindo in Savitri speaks of the deeper listening of the soul. And I use Savitri every week. between each of the ohms that we sing, and we usually sing 3 seated and one, the last one standing. And it has just worked out because people who are not singers, 1 hour is a lot of work. And to work on the body and the body consciousness, to teach the body how to receive the music is in itself quite a work. And so we sing those 4 ohms, and in between each ohm there will be a passage from Savitri, which immediately lifts the entire group soul to another plateau of experience, closer to the divine. It is a great honor that you have invited me. I thank you, Vladimir. I'm not a speaker, and so Aurelio is much better than I, and he'll carry on here with sound and hearing.
We please do 1 ohm with you.
Yes.
I
I actually also wanted to, if we can do that actually, get up and maybe make an inner circle here. Just in concentric circles, like clustering together. Yeah? that means like, yeah, it doesn't have to be in a circle, so that people from the back have also space if you step in.
We usually find that 2 concentric circles work very well. So people can be behind us also, and that would make it. And even though we're all very sensitive here, I really don't see a circle. Okay.
That was nice. Okay, usually there are no there are specific exercises we go through, but the most important thing is, and I think we are all tuned after this beautiful atmosphere created, we just open to the above, feel nicely grounded, and see how that gives space for a wave of Om taking us and uniting us. We are very fortunate starting our session on hearing through being in it, through Om vibrating with it. If you can be with that space and keep it, I'm asking you if you can take a little bit more space, just so each one has a bit of... We're exploring the phenomenon of hearing for the next half hour, and there's not so much to say about it. It's my experience, so I'm inviting you actually in experiencing with me different layers and steps of hearing. The first one, if you just can, now in the standing even, one of my teachers always said, the whole body is an ear. Let it wave like a sail in the wind. See if that's possible. The whole body is an organ, an amazingly complex and sensitive organ of perception. With the faculty of hearing, we enter receptivity, receptive space. The ear is like a mystery, leading us inward. See if it's possible of spreading that sense of receptivity into all the cells of your body. We're just like giant sails in the wind of all the movements of the universe. Like big dish antennas. Every cell of the body is perceiving is vibration. So there's this openness into the sphere all around. Same times while standing, there's a strong verticality. So what does that verticality do in that infinite space around and within? There's a direction there. Direction which connects us to the highest realms above and the deepest secret places of this terrestrial manifestation. There's an axis of awareness connecting the above and the below, and being nourished by all around. Hearing. Okay, see if you can carry that perception, that sensitive space, back in the sitting position. Just find your place. Stay connected with this receptive poise. No, it's okay. Just find a good, comfortable sitting position. No, I take Joseph too. Okay. If you can help me with microphone. Just. Something is burning.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's take the occasion actually. We want to explore hearing in the context of all other senses. Because in fact, there is a bit of a hierarchy of senses. Possibly from the Indian tradition, as it is told that different senses are relating to different elements. So we start with smelling. With that receptivity, just be with the sense of smell, which is happening naturally through breathing in through the nose. And immediately we can discern, is there something attractive or possibly dangerous and repulsive? Very primal sense of smell working in specific centers of our original brain. Basically, every sense is just a portal, it's a gate to connect this outside and the within. So the sense of smell connects us to a very specific layer, chemistry of this reality. With primal remembrances. Connects us very deeply to this amazing sensitivity and specialization in the animal kingdom. I've been even with Aborigines and San Bushmen who could smell over kilometers if there was a possible hunt, an animal approaching. From this etheric perception of sense of smell, we transit into more liquidity, fluid, the mucous membranes in the mouth cavity. Just see to meet the sense of taste. Again, a very complex affairs with certain differentiations. What's there for you? Is it a bitter taste, a sweet taste, some sour remembrances, something hot, spicy? What's that chemistry of the sense of taste? That sense of taste which is helping us to discern everything which we take into the organism. All the material substance which helps us to grow and to sustain this physical body is going through the sense of taste. In some beautiful ancient traditions, it's even touch, the consistency. We want to feel that nourishment. But the chemistry, the interaction is starting with the sense of taste. Now, as most of the people are very introverted already, concentrating on those sensory perceptions, take the opportunity to experience the sense of seeing with closed eyes. As Vladimir said before, we can see with closed eyes, and even deaf people can hear, to perceive, receive. So what are we seeing with closed eyes? Textures, movement, light, different frequencies of light, colors. So our perception is refining. It's almost as we could look into the dance of particles. Very interesting in the sense of seeing that it's connected with a will, so you can experiment with closed eyes seeing, and what happens, can you stay in that same inner concentration while opening your eyes? Without looking, you're seeing into space surfaces, colors, textures, shapes, forms, seeing. Already while all those other senses were going on, there is behind it a sense of touch. We are touched. Hearing a voice, seeing colors, perceiving an image, remembering a scent or a taste. We are touched by all these sensory impressions. What's the specificity of the sense of touch? It's touching us outside. The whole skin is the organ of touch. But there's no limit. It doesn't stay on the surface. Whatever is touching me on the surface, it can sink deeper. I can perceive it throughout the body. We heard before that all the senses are working simultaneously together. They're happening all at once. There are those differentiated portals of the nose, the mouth, the eyes, the pores of the skins, to finally come to our ears, where the left-right polarity is expressed in its strongest. Think of the two nostrils, which are still like twins together, into the two eyes, and out to our two ears. Just for a moment, listen into the possible difference between left and right hearing. Is there different sensitivity on your left side than on your right side? You might notice that the breath, as always, is always flowing through a predominant nostril, which changes every 2 hours or so. So in case your left nostril is open, it might reflect something on your left hearing too. We're dancing in this polarity between the solar and the lunar side of our being. The day and the night, the left and the right, the up and the down. Those two portals which somehow finally unite. The possibility of hearing again with every cell of our body. We are perceiving vibrations. Sounds from outside, sounds from within, subtler vibrations of possible feelings, sensations, thoughts. The sense of hearing is opening us into a totality of perception. We're simultaneously hearing and feeling the touch of it. Now if we focus specifically within the sense of hearing, if you still want to follow that process deeper within, there are different layers to hearing, and I will play a few different sounds, leading us from the outside of the hearing organ towards the deeper parts of it. So first, connect to the physical, to your ear. The ears of our embodiment, which are as specific as our fingerprints. There are no ears which are the same. Each ear is unique. It's like an entry gate into other spheres. So the first, where the inside and the outside meet in the ear, is in the ear drum. See if you can connect with this very tiny membrane. Like a drum skin. Hitting the drum, and there's still mechanical parts behind the membrane. We have the 3 tiny little bones, some of the most smallest bones, but very effective mechanism. So vibration from outside translates through a mechanical function, and when it comes deeper into the middle ear, it becomes fluid. The perception of vibration moves into the hair cells. Moving into the cochlea, spiraling in. Different frequencies. So we have the mechanical part of it. It moves into fluidity, and then that process of that vibration changing into an electrical impulse, fire coming into the play. How far can we follow that process? There was an impetus movement from outside, coming in, traveling deeper, meeting the essential sense, the 6th sense, which is uniting all the senses, the mind. What's happening in there in the mind? How, there's not even a question of how it's working, is what's happening to the being. Who is perceiving it? something happening in the pranic field. Whatever is going on there on the material layer of the mind and the brain, some reactions into the total field of our body. Reconnecting with the breath, with this primal movement of in and out, waving, perceiving the whole body as a wave. So on one side, that process of listening to what? To sound, vibrations. We have the gift in the Indian traditions that there are many different layers and definitions of sound. Shabda, which integrates, is the ultimate reality. It's where sound and stillness are united. The primordial energy, uniting sound and silence. Out of this totality of existence, we have another definition, nada, waves coming forth. And with this coming forth, at the same time there is a split, a first duality. There is movement and stillness. There are the waves and the particle, bindu, the still point and the movement all around. In this ocean of waves, there are pulsations, moments, spanda. The sound is expanding and contracting. And sometimes those movements, they are so definite that there's spota. There is a burst of sound which contains meaning, a word. Listening doesn't only open to the beautiful sounds of music, the organized sounds, and to the higher realms, we're exposed to the totality of vibrations from our environment. Dhvani, all the sounds of these creations, those sounds we are perceiving, sounds of nature, sounds of our organism, the sounds of our cultural evolution, of our lives, with this amazing drastic change a few hundred years ago of the mechanization and technology coming into life. Very different perception. What are those machines doing, transforming? What steps are they? Mechanical sound. Coming yet into more precision from this original Shabda into Svara, defined frequencies. We perceive sound through sound, we perceive frequencies of this movement of creation, the movement of energy. Svara helps us to define and discern the different frequencies. Very clearly it is stated in the Indian tradition, there are sounds which we hear, which are surrounding us, and there's a big range of frequencies which we don't perceive, which we're not hearing. The struck sound and the unstruck sound. Anahat nada. And the process of listening deeper and deeper, of unifying through listening, the process of nada yoga, finding this union, following the strains of vibration. And the final definition in the sevenfold definition of sound, Shruti, the most minute discernible sound in its highest precision, going musically into micro intervals, but at the same time, Shruti also means the revelatory sound, this which is revealed, the original hearing. Hearing and sound. One of the faculties of consciousness. Thank you for being with me and giving yourself into that space. We talked about the faculties of consciousness. We had so many words those last days talking about the faculties. But what does it mean to be in hearing? We're very fortunate to have different faculties to be able to grasp consciousness. What's this phenomenon of consciousness? How does your hearing perception change when you're opening your eyes, coming out of this deeper contemplation? You hear some formative sounds from me speaking. I hope that it's also able that I can convey something of a deeper perception I am abiding in. So all those layers we can hear. And this beautiful combination of combining it, the seeing and the hearing, speaking as the active part of the listening, thinking as the active part of the seeing, and all those combined, consciousness is there, it's perceptible, the phenomenon and the miracle of it. In this polarity between this physical embodiment and that subtle space around and within. One of my teachers from an old Pythagorean tradition, he said, we've been focusing on seeing over the last 2,000 years and developed it into its most amazing capacity. And we are such a visual culture, which possibly, he said, that the seeing helped actually to create the categories of mind and the ability to discern and possibly the discernment of the hemispheres. And he brought out this invitation of also taking care, regaining and making aware the sense of seeing, the receptive sense, which also opens a certain vulnerability. We cannot close our ears, we cannot shut something out. Those little ossicles, they do it. If we, from childhood, we don't want to hear certain sounds, they just conk out, they block. This one we don't want to hear. The mechanics help us. But with hearing, we're in a very, opening ourselves, we're in a very vulnerable, sensitive space. And then the importance, what to do with having opened and entered that space. A very beautiful way from the tradition is, if I'm in such receptive space, I just don't have anything to say. I'm delighting in the silence of it, or I connect with the energy through little seeds, through little beaches, seed sounds, mantras, that transition from silence and being there at the root of the creative power of the word. And we are so fortunate that we are able here to spend 50 years of our life exploring one of those seeds, that all united seed of Om. I would like to close that session in respect also coming towards the afternoon, where Nishta will share some original chanting of Saraswati. If we can, just in your very own way, we transit from your, I'm very grateful for your deep receptivity, we can transit with the bija of Saraswati. And we have this beautiful image from the Vedas that Saraswati, she is the river descending upon us, the river of creativity and knowledge. And her bija, in the contrast to Om, which can be also differentiated into A-U-M, which we are told in the Mandukya Upanishad, the bija of Saraswati is A-I-M. Aim, aim. It brings in the verticality. Whereas Om possibly is just purely spherical, equal to all direction, with Aim there is a verticality there. It seems so that we only come to knowledge after having come into this verticality as human beings. Then we can connect the highest and the deepest. So in your very own way, with your very own rhythm. We know, even Sri Aurobindo talked about it, the mantra can be expressed in silence, can be in murmuring, it can be half expressed, it can be in sound. Just see, if you want, you can experiment a little bit connecting with that image of the flowing river of knowledge and creativity and music. That's what music does, it connects us to the highest realm above. And hopefully that we are open for those realms to manifest. Aim. We're not really doing it, it happens. We're hearing and it's working, it's manifesting. Possibly even setting your aim or seeing your aim. Where's this river flowing into? Hearing and speech, thinking and seeing, the embodiment and the energy, faculties to perceive the miracle of consciousness, which we are. Thank you.